Cali class, assemble and eject the warp core. This is the season finale of the Lowdown on Lower Decks. Good morning, all starships in the Alpha, Beta, Gamma, and Delta quadrants. This is your host, Josh Pritchett, and this is the Lowdown on Lower Decks. So this morning, my partner in crime, Chris Babone, will be a little late joining us. He is presently at the Baltimore Comic Book Con, and he will join us as soon as he gets in here. And in the meantime, um, I am Josh Pritchett, as I said, interviewer, film critic, and reporter for Movers and Shakers, and also organizer of the Northern Virginia Star Trek Meetup Group. I want to welcome you all to our show today. Thank you for tuning in, or for those of you joining us on the YouTube channel, thank you for taking some time to stop and see us. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe to the Movers and Shakers channel and also to our webpage. And without further ado, let's get into the recap. Let's fly. So, this was a pretty exciting finale to this week's episode of Lower Decks. Now, we're following up on the events of what happened in episode 9, in which the USS Cerritos was raked over the coals by the media. Mariner was unceremoniously kicked off the ship and sent off to Starbase 80, but then promptly resigned Starfleet and joined up with the non-aligned archaeologist that we met in an earlier episode, and decided to launch into a career of adventure. Meanwhile, Captain Freeman and the crew of the Cerritos have returned to Starbase 001, where the ship is being repaired after the attack by the Breen. Captain Freeman is then, goes before a board of inquiry by the Admiralty, in which she has to defend her actions during the Breen attack and also face criticism that maybe the entire Cali class needs to be decommissioned and replaced by the automated Texas class ships, which we saw last week also. So in response to that, Captain Freeman decides to challenge Admiral Buenamigo, the developer of the Texas class, to a kind of a race to prove that the Cali class is still better than the Texas class. Meanwhile, Mariner and her new friend are, doing a series of Indiana Jones-like adventures, rescuing artifacts and giving them to museums, and keeping them out of the hands of Ferengi pirates and other groups. But Mariner still sort of, while she seems to be enjoying, getting to do her own thing and being irreverent as she usually is, she is clearly missing her friends and extended family aboard the Cerritos. Meanwhile, back at the Cerritos, Captain Freeman gives her crew the news that they're going to be in a race against the USS Alameda, the first of the Texas class ships, and to see which ships could do the second contact jobs better. So they have to go to 3 different planets and undertake 3 different missions and try to beat the Texas class. So the first one, they go to this one planet where they install a new power plant to help these people out. But then the Texas class gets there and basically beams down an entire power plant already prefabbed and replicated, which completely beats out the Cerritos. Then the Cerritos, trying to make up time, they go to set up an outpost on a distant planet, but then Tendi thinks she's found microbes in the sand, and they're trying to do a sentient examination. In other words, see if this is sentient life or not, or will become sentient life in a million years or so. But the Alameda just beams in its own outpost without even stopping. But it is revealed by Dr. Talar that no, it wasn't actually that. It was just an electro outburst from the sand. It could mess up with tricorders. So they then head to the final planet, which was one of these planets like we saw in Voyager that appears in real time once for a few minutes every year. And they have to beam in supplies, but the Alameda gets there first and beams down the supplies. And so, of course, the Cerritos has lost the match. But then Tendi points out that, if I hadn't have stopped to check for that microbial life form thing, we might have beaten it. And Freeman's like, wait, you're right. The Alameda didn't stop to see if if the life form was going to be sentient or not. And so she calls up Buenamigo and tells him, hey, your test failed because the Alameda did not, do a sentient life test. But then Rutherford, who's been looking through the Texas class code, realizes that it is the same code that he developed when he was the not so nice, angry spaceship racing version of himself from many years before. It's his code, and exactly the same code that he used to create the holographic AI Badgie. And of course, it's very unstable and has daddy issues. So Rutherford rushes to Carol's office to tell her what's going on. And Buenamigo is like, I should have erased you when I had the chance. And then decides to activate the Alameda, give it full sentient control of itself, and tells it to go destroy the Cerritos. And he's going to friend the Cerritos and pretend like, oh, they started attacking the star base, and the Alameda responded. But then it turns out, no, the Alameda is no longer under the control of Buenamigo, and in fact is ready to unleash all its rage and hostility on him, which it promptly does. It blows him up. So goodbye, Admiral Buenamigo. Meanwhile, then the Alameda then launches itself out of the starbase and proceeds to start attacking the starbase. Carol and the crew start trying to call Starfleet for more assistance, and then suddenly the Alameda unlocks two other Texas class ships that were, that had just been finished, and they join in the attack. Then a Sovereign class starship shows up to try to defend the starbase and is promptly overwhelmed by the Texas class ships. Carol then gets the crazy idea to tell the Alameda that if they don't stop, she's going to have Rutherford erase their program, which he doesn't really have the ability to do, but they don't know that, and then proceeds to get them to chase her away from the starbase and save the lives of everybody there and on the Sovereign class. Back with Mariner, we discover that Mariner has been very suspicious of her new friend about where they're getting their funding, where these artifacts are going, yada, yada. So she hacks into her friend's computer, and her friend confronts her about it, but says, go ahead, look at it, and finds out that the person backing the project is none other than Admiral Jean-Luc Picard himself, because apparently in an attempt to save artifacts from around the galaxy, he has hired this archaeologist to go around and save them from various not so nice people. At that point, the Mariner realizes, oh man, I want to go back to Starfleet. I want, to believe in something higher than myself. And the archaeologist tells her, well, we got a problem there because Starfleet is under attack. Apparently this new class of AI ship is attacking everything. And Mariner's like, we got to go help the Cerritos. And eventually convinces the archaeologist to help her, and they go off there. Back on the Cerritos, they've got the 3 Texas class ships chasing them at warp 9. The ship can't take much more of this. And so Carol needs a plan, and everybody starts suggesting stuff. Shax, of course, suggests, as he always does, let's launch out the warp core. And everybody kind of ignores him because he always says that. But then Boimler jumps up, and I forgot to point out that earlier in the episode he had upset Shax with something he said, and he says, "Everybody, just shut the hell up and listen to Shax." And Shax says, "We can eject the warp core," and then Carol realizes, "Wait, that's a great idea because we can use the warp core as a mine to take out the Texas class ships." So everybody's rooting for Shax as he rushes down to engineering, and he and the engineer unlock the warp core and shoot it off into space, kicking the Cerritos out of warp and blowing up the Texas class ships. Well, okay, so the Cerritos is more or less okay. Everybody's, hurt, banged up, but they're alive. Suddenly, the Alameda comes out of warp. The warp core managed to destroy the other 2 Texas class ships, but not the Alameda, and it's coming to wipe out the Cerritos. Then Mariner shows up, and Carol says, "Mariner, get out of here! You can't survive this. Nobody could survive this." And she's like, "Oh, don't worry, Mom. I brought help." And suddenly, the Sacramento comes out of warp. Sacramento, a sister Cali class ship shows up, and Carol's like, "But another Cali class, but it'll destroy you." "Oh no, it won't." And then suddenly, the Los Angeles, the San Diego, the San Jose, the San Francisco, the Fresno, the Long Beach, the Oakland, the Bakersfield, the Anaheim, the Stockton, the Riverdale, the Santa Ana, the Irvine, the Cola Vista, the Fremont, the Santa Clara, the San Bernardino, the Modesta, the Monterey Valley, the Fontaine, the Oxnard, Huntington Beach, Glendale, all the Cali class ships show up. And in a moment of Cali class assemble, they attack the Alameda and manage to blow it up and save the Cerritos. And the episode ends with them returning to the starbase, repairing the Cerritos, and they celebrate that, hey, Cali class really showed up everybody that what they're made of, and that they are not just a little ship doing a little job, that they are doing a big important job. Mariner comes back aboard the Cerritos, and her friends say, "Hey, we're sorry, we should have supported you." And Mariner's like, "Nah, don't worry about it." Carol invites her back to the Starfleet, and Mariner says that maybe it's time she buckle down and try to get back on the path, get more on the straight and narrow path again. And after experiencing civilian life, decides she didn't like it all that much. She then decides that she would like the Ransom to be her mentor, and Carol agrees. And Ransom's like, "What did I do to deserve this?" And then it ends with the Vulcan ensign that we met last season from the Vulcan ship. She is now a Starfleet officer, and she is now joining the Lower Decks crew and is now Tendy's new study buddy. And that is where our episode ends. So, okay, so Chris ought to be joining us any second now, so that we can go over the good, the bad, and the Gorn. Meanwhile, I want to remind folks that we'll probably be starting our Prodigy review show sometime next week, hopefully. And also, if you are in the Central Virginia area, the Virginia Film Festival will start. And here we go. Chris is about to join us. So hang on, folks, as we get ready to delve into the good, the bad, and the Gorn in just a second. He's getting set up. So, and here he is, I think. Yes, the modern miracles of live broadcast. So, at any rate, we also have if anybody's watching right now, we have our public comment page. If you'd like to send us some comments and let us know what you thought of this week's episode. I personally thought it was a banger and it was a great episode. And so, if anybody would like to make any suggestions for things they'd like to see going forward on this show or any of our other Star Trek review shows, they should definitely let us know. And also in heedless self-promotion, the Star Trek Meetup organization, which I'm the head of, I've just been informed that we should start the good, the bad, the gorn. So, okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about what I liked about particularly this episode. So I gotta admit, my overall favorite thing of the episode was the Cali class assemble moment, which of course is reminiscent of the climax of Avengers Endgame, when all the superheroes show up to help Captain America. The fact that it was just Cali classes, not Sovereigns or Galaxies or Kiras or any of the other big capital ships we saw in the Dominion War. It was just these, Cali class coming out to defend their honor and help their sister ship out. Was just so awesome. Plus, we get to see a lot of the Cali class characters that we've seen throughout the first 3 seasons come back, and like the captain of the Sacramento and various others. It's so awesome to see them. I really was glad that, we really went somewhere with Rutherford's storyline. And he seemed pretty cool with it at the end. I think that, and it was so cool. Boimler finally getting his bridge buddy in Lieutenant Shax, and also becoming part of Shax's bear pack, which is just so adorable. And there was that, and I'm glad we had a callback to the, I'm sorry I'm blanking on the character's name, but the Vulcan scientist who in Ensign, who we saw in season 2, is now going to be on the show, hopefully full time. It's going to be interesting to see how well she functions, because she did not function that great on the Vulcan science ship, because they were a little bit too logical, a little bit too stiff for her. Let's see how well she does with being a full-time Starfleet officer and having to deal with the shenanigans that go on in our beloved lower decks. But there's a lot of other things going on with that. I really love the fact that Carol and Mariner reconnected with each other. Also, another thing I thought I really enjoyed was the fact that, we're kind of narrowing down the timeline on this a little bit. So clearly, I think they did mention that the time frame was sometime in the 2390s, which jives from what we know about the time period of when the Romulan Empire is on the verge of collapse, because its home star is about to explode, and Jean-Luc Picard is now the admiral, and his main job, of course, is supervising the relocation of the Romulan people. And so he's got this side gig going on with the independent archaeologists, that, hey, we need you to keep recovering all this stuff. And he clearly has a lot of connection, because, hey, he's an admiral, so he can authorize a lot of, these, secret missions, and have the archaeologists go out there and say stuff. And here he is, my BFF, Mr. Chris Pavone. Hey, how's Comic-Con?
Baltimore Comic-Con is awesome.
We can hear you. There you go.
Good, can you hear me? Okay. Baltimore Comic-Con is awesome. Josh, thank you for covering at the start, and hello to all our fans out there on this one, our last show of the season. And Josh, part of the reason why I was late is because I was just in the middle of discussions with the network. And Josh, I have bad news. They intend to replace us with an AI.
Oh, son of a gun.
They said that unless we can get at least one person to make a live question today, they are going to, use an algorithm. So
Oh,
if this be our last stand, we have to make it a good one.
okay. So
And
you
for
you
all
heard
of
the
you,
man, folks.
and for all of you out there, please ask us a question because we would like to be back for next season. We don't want to be replaced by an algorithm.
Yeah, no, no one's gonna like it if the algorithm replaces us.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, because the algorithm's gonna have daddy issues,
yeah, it's
and it's gonna
tested.
it's gonna try to wipe us all out. So
Oh yeah.
yeah, so please send us in a live question or a comment, or you know,
One
just
live
or
question.
just
That's all
ask
we
how we're
need.
doing. Hmm?
One live
Sorry,
question. That's all we need here.
one question. We'll answer anything
That's right.
within reason or outside of reason.
And that's
We
not a
don't
reason
care.
to.
We
Um,
don't care. So I've now moved into. I'm still in the good part of the discussion. So what do you got for me, Chris?
I loved this episode as a season finale because I think it took everything from the season and put it into just one spot, which is the arrival of all the Cali class, the team up, if you will, to defeat the Texas class. And I thought that the show in general in this third season has really moved on from just being a show of a bunch of clever Easter eggs to one that has its own mythos and stands in its own two legs. So, bravo to the
Yeah.
writers. Um, I liked this episode. Viewers may recall that I thought that we were going to end on a cliffhanger. I'm glad we didn't. I thought I love the scene at the end of the bar when he stands up and says, like, we stood up to incredible odds and we kicked some incredible ass. And it was all the Cali ships that banded together, the ones that Starfleet wanted to replace. I mean, it wasn't the big Excelsior style ship that came to try to save the station. It was the Cali classes all together.
Yeah. And that just goes back to prove that there are no small jobs. Everything is important, especially in something like Starfleet. Um, and they really proved that this week. Um, and as we, I mean, this was a season of really great episodes, and we ended on such a high note that okay, season 4, I think the pressure is going to be on for these writers to, come up with something that's gonna, because I'm going to be honest, and I've talked with fans all over about this. Right now, I think Lower Decks is probably the strongest of all the modern Star Trek shows out there.
I cannot argue with this. I'm with you on here. Another thing that I liked that was good, and if anyone is out there and wants to pose a question whether they agree or not, is I liked at the end that Mariner doesn't go back to Jennifer. I mean, it would have been easy for Mariner to go in and to see Jennifer and say like, everything is like, everything is forgiven. No, he walks right past her. And can the Jennifer Mariner relationship be saved? Should it be saved? I'm on team dump Jennifer.
I kind of still on team save Jennifer, just because she's definitely kind of she really did seem like there was chemistry there. I did find it very strange that they didn't have Jennifer at least walk over and say, "Hey, I'm so sorry. I should have been there for you." Everybody else did. Um, Maybe there was something there and they decided they had to kind of cut it from it was just ran over time, and maybe we'll deal with that next season. Maybe that's going to be part of, maybe that's the cliffhanger. We're going to find out about that. And also because the young Vulcan ensign, um, what's going to be her deal? What are we going to get from her going
And
forward?
that's the thing that I love about the show, that every single detail matters and it comes back. Like we hadn't seen Talen since I think last season, and surprise, here she ends up on the Cerritos. I mean, there was no small details on Lower Decks. Everything matters. It may not appear immediately why it matters, but it does.
Right. I mean, this is not a simple 30-minute a week story. I mean, it is episodic, but we do pull on strings like any good drama or comedy would. That we will go back to these characters, and this just because we only saw them one time doesn't mean we won't see them again in a future episode. I mean, look at Peanut Hamper. I mean, we saw her and then we thought that was the end of her. And then suddenly she's like, oh, I'm back. And I'm suddenly one of the big E. one of the big evils out there. And
And
so
speaking,
there's go ahead.
well, I was going to say, to follow up when you said, speaking of evils, Admiral Buenamigo, not such a good friend after all.
Not at all. No. He kind of got what was coming to him. I mean, let's face it. Um, one thing I liked was the control panel he's using. It's that same cheesy multi-light panel that we saw way back in the original Star Trek when they had the M5 computer, which was the first time Starfleet had decided to use an artificial intelligence to control a starship. And back then, of course, they didn't call them AI. Nobody would have even understood what that meant. But yeah, it was the same idea, and of course, it was developed by Richard Daystrom, who of course built all the big computers, or for the Federation, and went on to, of course, have an entire
I got a question.
institute. And we have a
We have a
comment.
question. We have a question. We're saying we will not be replaced by an algorithm.
Yay!
Yay!
And thank you to Donna Donna, thank you for your question. Do you think all the AIs will all get together? I'm going to go hard yes on that,
Yes.
Donna. Thank you for asking that. Chris, you want to?
I totally agree. I think that Agamas and Peanut Hamper, they will come back in next season, and I think they are going to try to demonstrate why they're superior. But I believe we are not done with them yet, and I think the final shot of the episode shows that the evil AIs, they're not going away. Someone picked up the remnants of or Rutherford's first AI. So yeah, I think the Agamas, Peanut Hamper, the AIs, they're coming back. We're not done with them. But where we're done with them? We're done with them on this show, because Joss and I will not be replaced with algorithms now. Thank you.
Yes, we're still going to be live and flesh and blood, folks. So we're not going anywhere. So, at any rate, I think Star Trek has kind of though developed, and we should get into this in the gore, but let's go to the bad. Was there anything bad about this episode?
So I'm nitpicking here a little bit, but and I always do, right? People who watch the show know that I do a little bit. Were they, when the Texas class at Aleppo initiated its assault, then followed by the two other Texas classes, why weren't the shields up? I mean, were they within the shields? I mean, I would have liked something that said that after they took out Buenamigo's office, that they took out the shield emitter, because the station's got to have shields.
Yeah, well, I think part of it was, first of all, the Alameda was inside.
Yes.
Inside the starbase, and setting off a large explosion like that probably would have damaged the ship, the starbase from the inside, and knocked out a few critical power conduits like the shield emitters. Donna just added another comment. Badgie, yes, I think Badgie will be back too.
Yes.
And will probably be, might even be leading Agamas and Peanut Hamper, but there's so many egos there. I think it's going to take a whole episode just to decide who's going to be the boss of the AIs in the coming attempt to take over Starfleet.
I think Section 31 grabbed Badgie at the end.
Yeah. Oh, could be. I mean, we know William Boimler is part of Section 31, so maybe he has something to do with it. I'm sure we're setting up. There's a lot of stuff there that we've left open, like Badgie and Agamas and Peanut Hamper and William Boimler, that going forward into season 4, that we're going to want to see answered by the show, and I'm sure they've got plans for those guys. But I think as far as like anything bad I might have had, I kind of did not like the fact that Buenamigo just seemed like such a stereotypical character. I felt very uncomfortable with that.
But that was
Uh,
sort of the point that she was making, though, when she say you can't be one of those admirals who just like go evil all of a sudden. And he's like, yeah, pretty much I am.
well, yeah, that was a good line, but I think like the whole thing with smoking and and just he and the maniacal laugh. But I mean, I was glad he got what was coming to him when his own creation turned on him. I mean, don't create an AI with daddy issues. That's always bad. I mean, I refer everybody back to Mary Shelley Wollstonecraft's Frankenstein. Obviously, is the most obvious one, and then of course more recently Lore, um, who we do know is coming back in the final season of Picard. So yeah, I think we have like I was saying that when we get into the Gorn, I want to point this out. But yeah, I think that was all I really had. I would have liked to see Jennifer say something to Mariner. But again, that's something probably we're going to save for next season if that's going to come back. That story arc might have run its course and they may move into something else. But I kind of hate to see just to just go away and be done with it. Yeah, I was hoping for more, but I think maybe that's what's going to happen just to keep her character relevant.
I understand for the storyline they needed to like damage the Cerritos quite a bit, but like this is the second time in back-to-back seasons that the Cerritos has taken a pounding. And like how many times can you like rebuild a ship?
Yeah, that is a really good question, and because like at the end of last season, it kind of had to get rid of its whole outer layer to get through that energy field, and then of course they had to put a new one on there, and but as William Riker said in season one, hey, that ship really can take a pounding, you know, and clearly the Cali class, is a lot tougher, I think, than they thought it was. And and I think the people serving aboard, it's like, everybody thinks we're the lowliest of the low, but we're not, and we're going to prove it. And they keep fixing it back up, and they keep rebuilding it just to prove that, hey, um, yeah, we may get knocked down, but we're going to get right back up because we're Cali class, and we're going to earn respect. And they definitely did that.
It's the lower decks that keep the ship running. It's not the executive officers.
No.
But
I mean, without those guys down in the basement, you got nothing.
Right, you got nothing. Um, Talking about the higher ups. So in that meeting of all the Starfleet admirals, and like it just seems Brenamigo was the only one who knew the Breen was had made an incursion on that planet. I mean, no, it seems to me one of the other admirals should have spoken up and said like, well, we suspected it was a Breen incursion, but it's just like, someone. I can't buy that Buenamigo was the only one who knew the Breen was there. Although, they offered her fleet captain, which I think is a rank that only Pike had, right? At one point when he leaves the Enterprise.
I thought he might have been a fleet captain. I thought it was Commodore. We'd have to go back and look
Okay.
at that. But I think or Commodore is the same thing. If anybody knows that, please let us know.
Yes, please.
I think we'd like to answer that.
I think a fleet captain is above a Commodore, but I'm yeah. If anyone out there knows which is the higher rank, please share it with us.
Right. Or that's just something that they came. Any of our friends who have experience with the Navy or something. But
Josh, did you think there should have been more starships at the base when the Texas class attacks?
Good question. I mean, I think it depends on what the deployment was. How many ships should have been there at any one time, or I mean, they could have all been out on patrols. Yeah, we didn't really see any other ships there, but I kind of think that was just a minor thing. I mean,
yeah, nitpicking here. I love the episode. I just want to make it clear for all viewers out there. I was very happy with the episode as the season finale.
Yeah, it was a great ending to an amazing season, and you know, I think now I'm gonna have to we're gonna have to go through 9 months of withdrawal until the season 4 comes out next summer, and but I mean, of course, luckily in the meantime we've got plenty of other Star Trek, but it's just unfortunately it's not Mariner and Carol and Sam and Boimler and Tendi and Ransom and the rest of our friends on lower decks that we're gonna miss those guys for. But of course we have the big crossover between them and Strange New Worlds
Right.
coming up, which we are actually going to see the faces behind the voices um, when the voice actors actually become the characters that they've been voicing for the last 3 years, and we see them in real time. So it's going to be really fun seeing Jack Quaid with purple hair.
How do
So
you think they're going to do that? I'm thinking holodeck.
I don't know. That's I think time travel is going to be somehow involved. I mean, I know it's going to go
Okay.
both ways. We're going to see animated Strange New Worlds, and we're going to see live action Lower Decks. So I mean, it's a two-part story. So and I think the way the scheduling is, Strange New Worlds runs right into Lower Decks. Because they're back to back, and of course next we've got Prodigy that just started this week too, which
Right. I
um,
know it's next year. We start off with Picard, and
mhm.
then I would imagine it'll be this Picard, Discovery, Strange New Worlds, then Lower Decks.
Yeah, that sounds right to me. I mean, well, maybe it's Discovery first. I mean, I don't. I have to remember when the Discovery season is going to start because we're going to have at least a couple of months here with Prodigy. And this is the end of October, so we'll be going right into December with Prodigy for sure. So somewhere in there, um, we're gonna, I think last year or this past year, Picard was the one that started us off, and then it was Discovery, and then it was lower, and then it was Strange New Worlds. I think. Am I right about that? I think that's the way the scheduling is going to go
So,
going forward.
Josh, I have a sort of a Gones question,
Hmm.
and people can feel free to like chime in as they watch. Um, who do we think is doing better as far as TV shows? And we're all friends here, but Star Trek or Star Wars?
Ooh, good question. I was actually thinking about that this morning when I finished my rewatch of the episode. Um, and as I've told you, and I've told many friends, there is a symbiotic relationship between Star Wars and Star Trek. George Lucas has said in interviews he was a huge Star Trek fan when he was in college, and it inspired him to make Star Wars. And because of the success of, hey Nathan, we think you're cool too.
Yes, we
Um,
do. Thank you, Nathan.
Thank you, Nathan. Please keep commenting. And because of the success of Star Wars, Paramount felt confident enough to make a Star Trek movie. And then because of the Star Wars sequels, they made sequels to Star Trek. And from there, we had spin-off shows: The Next Generation, Voyager, DS9, and Enterprise. And then more recently, because Star Wars made such great animated shows like Clone Wars and Rebels, Star Trek, decided to try again with animation with Lower Decks and Prodigy, and those have been great. Um, I think there's a lot to be said, and for Andor and Obi-Wan, I think both have been excellent. Although I think Andor is probably a little bit more of a slow burn than Obi-Wan was. Uh, I think right now, um, I'm gonna say it's a toss up on the animated stuff because I haven't watched Tales of the Jedi yet, but I think Lower Decks is kind of moving ahead on the animation front. I think Star Trek is doing great on most of the shows, especially Strange New Worlds on the live action stuff. But I think there's I think there's slightly ahead. I think there's a lot more action going on. I think but like I said, Andor is kind of a slow burn, but it's a good show. I'm not hating on it at all, but I think that I think they're kind of settling a point where they're sort of one to one. Um, Although, it'll be interesting to see if, like, I mean, obviously, I know there's some more Star Wars movies in production and development, and we keep getting all these delays on the next Star Trek um, Calvin timeline movie. Is that going to happen, or is that not going to happen? I don't know, but at some point, I think when they start making Star Wars movies again, Star Trek is going to have to get fired up and actually make that next Calvin timeline movie somehow.
I'm not sure if we need a Kelvin timeline movie. I mean, all respect to people who like the Kelvin timeline, but um, uh, you know, I think there's enough material that we could make a movie out of Strange New Worlds, for example. I mean, I don't think we need to go to a Kelvin timeline. With all due respect to people who like the Kelvin timeline, I think what we've got going on now, the Prime timeline or the Picard timeline, if you will, um, uh, I like. I think we got enough there.
Yeah, I mean, you could do another prime timeline movie of something. Um, I you know I don't know if you want to do like another Enterprise, or I don't know, something in there. Yeah, they could definitely do something with. I mean, I'm not necessarily saying the Quentin Tarantino idea, but yeah, I mean, there's got to be something there that we could go back to the prime time line to do. Um,
Josh, it tickles my fancy that now we know what happens with the profits from Chateau Picard. They go to fund the Independent Archaeologists Guild.
yeah, I was just saying that's really cool. Between that and between the fact that I'm sure Admiral Bakar can just authorize, oh yeah, refuel this person's ship. She's doing something for me. Um, yeah, that's going on, and I'm glad that it wasn't anything nefarious. That it was Picard, and that this is clearly taking place. Because one thing, we've only seen the Romulans in holographic stuff. We have not actually seen the Romulans, so we know right now Picard is out there trying to save the Romulan people and try to relocate. And so obviously the Romulan fleet is trying to do all they can to try to save their empire. They're not directly engaging with Starfleet except to coordinate missions. So we know that's one reason why the Cerritos has not had a lot of encounters there. Um, but going forward, I mean, you got to wonder, you got to hope, is Admiral Picard going to call in, say, hey, Cerritos, come help us pick up some of these Romulan refugees, help us out here, that would be kind of cool, even though Patrick has kind of indicated that this upcoming season of Picard is going to be his swan song
Right.
to the character. But
I
then
mean,
again, he doesn't actually have to. They could just say that, either they could just take, a few lines from him from an earlier show, like they did on Prodigy with Leonard, with Spock and stuff. So, but it's good to know we've kind of narrowed the timeline to the 2390s,
so,
almost 2400 at least, I think.
so Josh, best episode of the season.
Yeah, I'm. I know it's hard to say because we had the DS9 episode, and we had the episode right before. Episode 8 was also excellent. We had so many, and episode 9 was amazing. We had a lot of great episodes. So yeah, this was a great ending to this year's season. And
Yeah, I mean, what sells it for me is all the Cali classes coming together, united, and it makes perfect sense. Mariner had to be outside to be able to bring them all together, so they could all band. And we even had like the alter Cerritos insects.
yeah,
One assumes the mirror universe there. I mean, it just totally worked. That sequence totally worked, of everyone coming together to accomplish something that again the Sovereign class ship couldn't. And we make so much fun of eject the warp core, eject the warp core. Except this time ejecting the warp core worked. It was brilliant. And I
yeah,
love the character actor Boimler, who usually will, he's kind of meek around like the executive office, but he's just like, will everyone just shut up and listen to what Jax has to say?
yeah. He has grown a lot over this past season. The bold Boimler character, that he's become, that he's taking the risks, he's trying to get himself out there. He's not the wimpy little guy who whines about raisins and stuff, that he's he's actually fulfilling his ambition to be this great, and I mean, we saw a lot of it in season 2 when he kept taking that simulation over and over, trying to get his score up, and pushing it. Yeah, I mean, we probably will see, either we're going to see a Captain Boimler, or Boimler's going to get himself killed.
It's one or the other.
There's no middle ground. It's one way or the other. 50-50 chance of either one happening at this point. So that's our guy Brad. So, at any rate, I was going to mention something about our complicated relationship with AIs, how that's different. Because we had Data and the holograph doctor who were obviously friends, and they were really great people. But we've had a lot of AIs, the M5 computer, Agamas, Peanut Hamper, Lore, the Alita, the Alameda, the Texas class ships, the Borg, that clearly are, don't paint AI in a good light.
And by the way, I loved how all the Cali class ships or names of cities or sites in California.
Yeah, you didn't see it, but I started listing off all the names. Like Brad did, because I just thought that was so funny, So I had to try to do that myself, but I got about halfway down the list. So, any rate, so we are coming towards the end here, and so what are our theories for next season? I mean, we know some things that are going to happen, but what are some other thoughts you have going forward, Chris?
Well, I think that next season, we, in addition to the AIs, will probably be our prime enemy, that we may see one of the lower deckers rise up in rank. It might be a small rise, but I think one of them is going to rise.
My money is on, I'm going to put my Gold Press Platinum on Tendi.
I'm going to put it on Mariner.
Really? Okay. Mariner.
So everyone who's out there, who do you think? Is it going to be Rutherford, Tendi, Mariner? Which one of the lower deckers is going to be the first one to get a little bump up?
I don't know. Maybe Brad's going to be the dark horse in all this. He did get promoted once. I mean, he could get promoted again. It's possible.
I also think that we're going to see some change in. I think some part of Rutherford's original personality will emerge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, you think he's going to take the crew on a drag race or something?
It's possible.
Yeah, couldn't hurt. I mean, I'm curious myself what he's going to happen with him next. I mean, Sam Rutherford's a hell of a character, and it's a lot of fun to watch. So I think it's going to be a long 9 months here till we get to next September and the next season of the show.
So we'll just have
wait. Donna just chimed in again. She says she's betting on Mariner. Okay, Mariner.
All right.
Okay,
all right.
Donna, sorry. Yeah. All right. So yeah. Okay. Could be Mariner. Yeah. So
I'm with you, Donna. I think it's going to be Mariner.
Thank you for joining us on that, Donna. And we're gonna see what happens though. Moving forward, hopefully. We'll have plenty of other good Star Trek adventures, but we're going to miss our beloved friends on Lower Decks for the next few months. But
so Josh, does this mean that you and I are just going to make like the Grisellians and go into hibernation for 9 months?
Oh no, Chris! No. I think next week we've got another Star Trek show to talk about, and that is, of course, Star Trek Prodigy. So, and I'm just gonna put this out here right now. I think we should call this the Lowdown on Lower Decks. I think we should call this one Pursuing Prodigy. What do you think?
Could be. Not a bad name.
We usually talk about this behind the scenes, but we're I think we're almost to the end here. So we will come back next week with our thoughts on the first 2 episodes of Prodigy. and we will, hopefully you will keep talking to us and keep giving us these great questions and comments. So with that said, Chris, you want to let everybody know where to find you?
Yes, indeed. And I want to do a couple of local shout outs. First of all, big thank you to the organizers of Baltimore Comic Con. You've done a great job again. We are enjoying the con here, and so this is really well done. Shout out to our friends at Farpoint Comic Con, which will probably be the first con that I personally go to in 2023. They're like Lower Decks. They're the hardest working con around this area. So come February, if you can, please go to Farpoint, which will have some people from Prodigy. And finally, a shout out to a really great organization, Hero Initiative. They're here at Baltimore Comic Con. You might see them at other cons. They do a lot of great work with some of the artists that really thrilled us with their drawings and their writings years ago. For those of us like myself that have been collecting comics for a while, and for those current writers as well. So if they usually have a little container at artist desks with a little green circle that says, support Hero Initiative, and a lot of the artists will sign for free as long as you support Hero Initiative. So, if you're still here at Baltimore Comic Con, or if you go to another con and you see them, please consider supporting Hero Initiative. And finally, about myself, thank you to all the people who asked, let me take their pictures of cosplay. And you can see a lot of the cosplay from Baltimore Comic Con on my gram, Verde Cosplay.
Thank you, Chris. And before we wrap up, Donna just sent us in another question. I will try to answer this real quick. Do you think that the other two mystery shadow people will be revealed with the implant for Sam? Good question, because we have another shadow person in the form of whoever it was who recruited the evil version of Boimler off of the Titans. So
my money is still that person. My money is still on Jadzia Dax.
Yes, who has said in a recent interview she would like to come back to Star Trek. So, Donna, that's a good guess, and thank you for the questions. I think it's possible. We will wait and see. So,
but yes, I think we will see the two shadowy figures because again, no detail is left unturned on Lower Decks.
No, and we will pursue that. So, of course, you can find me at Josh Pritchett Jr. on Facebook, at the Northern Virginia Star Trek Meetup. Yes, that's very true. Thank you, Donna. And like I said, the Northern Virginia Star Trek Meetup.org. And if you're interested, if you live in the Southern Maryland, Northern Virginia, or any part of the region, and would like to come hang out with fellow Trekkies, we'd love to have you. And of course, my book, Bigfoot and Other Tales of the Supernatural, is still on sale at Amazon and also at the Charlottesville New Dominion bookstore. Until next week, when we return to review Star Trek Prodigy, I am Josh Pritchett.
Peace and long life.